Hello, this is take 2 live. Today, I thought we'd do something different. Let's talk about something we can actually prove, which is this book. You guys have noticed I started sharing a lot more ancient Egypt pictures. I don't know if everyone knows that's one of my many obsessions. Ever since I was 5 years old, I've been obsessed with Egypt. This book was written by Howard Carter. He's one of my personal heroes. He believed in hope. And before I get into his story, which is very interesting, you guys, I want to ask you the same question I asked my child. Do you believe that I love you? And if the answer is not yes, then how can I show you that I do? If it's within my morals, let's talk about it. After that, Howard Carter. You notice his name, Howard Carter. There are no coincidences in life. Another of my favorite authors is called Howard Phillips Lovecraft. The main character in a lot of his stories is Randolph Carter. So we keep seeing those same names and numbers, and certain things just keep popping up all over events, history, people, time, space. Just like this book. I had a large library as a teenager. I loved Egypt. I can't say enough how much it's my obsession. But after becoming an adult, I sold a lot of stuff. I had to sell all my history books. So this is a replacement. This is not the original one that I had. And I actually just had it sitting on my shelf for a couple years, and I was leafing through it in preparation to talk to you guys now, and I found something pretty cool. And again, no coincidences. Here is a map from an exhibition. It shows the Treasures of Tutankhamen audio tour at the Field Museum of Natural History. I'm not sure where that is. I probably should know where the Field Museum of Natural History is. But again, I'm kind of just winging it here, guys. There are so many things my brain has forgotten that I will make mistakes. Just bear with me. And I wanted to show you guys. This is on one of my favorite things from the tomb. I don't know how much you guys know about their mythology, but one of the lords that would immediately greet the deceased person upon their entrance to the underworld was Anubis. And he's kind of scary looking sometimes, but his spirit is one of kindness. And he would guard the deceased person, and if they were just and pure of heart, they would be able to enter the afterlife. King Tut was buried with a beautiful representation of Anubis, and the last person to leave the tomb put this shawl around him. So it was the first thing that Howard saw when he entered. I don't know if you guys can see that. Somebody took the time to wrap this around the statue that was going to protect their beloved for eternity. So the thing that this king can prove above almost any other is love and hope. I know we have a slow connection, and I'm so sorry. I tried doing this from the computer, and it wouldn't let me go live. It kept telling me to set it up, and then it wouldn't let me save it, so I just propped up the phone and went with it. Okay, Howard Carter. Like I said, he was one of the embodiments of hope. As a young man, he had an idea that things needed to be more orderly. He saw the chaos that was happening with other explorers and the things they found and maybe couldn't identify later at the museum. So he came up with his own system of tagging and photographing everything in situ before it left the tomb, and then carefully preserving it before it went to the museum, before it left the valley. So this guy really cared about what he did. That was his passion. And he shared that with his friend, Lord Carnarvon, Again, I'm probably not saying a lot of these names right. I'm sorry, guys. Lord Carnarvon had the money. Howard had the determination. So they made a great team. But after 7 long years of digging with nothing to show for it, Earl of Carnarvon was ready to be done. He was in talks with Howard of just, let's move to somewhere else. There's nothing left here to find, buddy. Everybody said it's over. But Howard was passionate, and he had hope. And he convinced his friend to give him 1 more year. And within that year, this is what they found. He found the steps, November 4th, 1922. And again, we have those dates and numbers that keep coinciding, like November and the 4th in 1922. But once he saw what it was and how significant it was going to be, he closed everything back up and called his friend to come from England so they could open it together. And when Lord Carnarvon arrived with his daughter, Lady Evelyn, they took a peek inside. And some of you may know what Howard said. They had a small candle for light. And they asked Howard, "What do you see? Can you see anything?" And he said, "Yes. Wonderful things." Okay, one of them, I'm sorry, you guys, I could go on about this for days. The chair. And you guys, I got ahead of myself. You don't even know the history, the significance of this find. For that, we need this book, The Royal Mummies. And again, this is not my original copy. This is a replacement. So yeah, I want to show you guys where King Tut comes from. This is a little bit graphic if anyone is squeamish or does not like mummies, okay? Okay. Hang on. Let me find his father first. That's going to be the best point of origin for us, guys. I'm sorry. Like I said, I was not prepared. But I just had to get on here and start talking to you for some reason. Towie. I did have music going and it has stopped on its own. Well, I know he's in here. We've seen him. Come on, buddy. I don't want to say his name because I'm not totally positive that is his name right at the moment. But this is the mummy here marked as Amenephis IV. Right here we only have his skull. Because if any of you guys know KV-55, it was found in very bad shape. The mummy and the coffin were very badly damaged, both by robbers and by natural events, flooding and earthquakes and such that collapsed parts of the tomb. So his mummy is in very bad shape. But he fits into the royal line after Amenephis III. Amenephis IV, possibly, and the mother. Okay, I want to cover half of this so you only get her good side, because she was damaged badly in antiquity, but that's her good side. Okay, and we can see this was a small lady. She's very beautiful, even with damage to her body. She's beautiful. And she was one of the king's wives. Here is her mother, and this is how we know for sure of her genetic connection to him. Queen Tia. I know I'm not saying half of these right. I'm sorry, guys. Tia was his grandmother, and he was buried with a lock of his grandmother's hair, which helped to identify her mummy later as being genetically a match to him, just as his father and mother, I believe, have been now genetically matched to him. That is not to say, we won't get into that today. We're talking about things we can prove. Like that Amenephis IV became incensed with the existing regime of the priests and the temples and the hypocrisy and greed of it all. And he wanted to return to the original source. So he left everything behind. He and his family moved to the desert and built a new city. They called it Akhenaten, or the city of Aten. He changed his name to Akhenaten, as he who serves Aten. Or sometimes Ankhenaten. I'm not sure which it is. Like I said, I've forgotten a lot of things, and the way I say them is probably wrong, because I do have that accent. Anyway, Akhenaten was done with the greed. He built his own city. He brings his family there. They worship one deity, the sun, the Aten, the glorious disk itself that would extend life-giving rays upon its followers. Okay? Everything from his time period has a very distinctive art style. He's shown loving his family, holding his children, playing with them, things that you would never see a king doing normally. So it was a total return to nature, kind of like a hippie life going on there at Amarna. And there were beautiful artworks during this period. A lot of it's been destroyed because they tried to erase every proof of his existence. But by doing that, they preserved it. Because a lot of his temples were torn down and used as filling material for people who came later. So now their things are falling apart and pieces of his world are coming out. So nothing remains hidden. Everything comes and goes around in a loop, and it will never be hidden forever. But things like this fan, I don't know if you guys could see that. It's just like a casual, everyday depiction of the king going hunting. And he's hunting, you see that? Ostriches or some kind of large bird. These are not enemies. He's just hunting for sport. So it's really different art style and just a whole different feel to his reign in general. And that only lasted for about 17 years before we don't know if he was killed, if there was some kind of illness, insurrection, or if he left on his own, because they have a body that could be him, but we don't know for sure. How can we know? Anyway, the next ruler that we know of and have physical proof of is the king himself, the boy king, who was age 9 at the time, I believe, and his sister was about the same age, his half-sister. They had different mothers. So they came from their father's city together to restore the old religion under the direction of their grandfather, who had been vizier to their father. Even if he wasn't their genetic grandfather, he certainly acted like he was, because he was trying to be that wise old man who, quote-unquote, looked out for their best interest. And by doing that, he made the old priests happy. He made the majority happy. Okay, I had a bookmark. Hello, Mammoth. My cat is sitting up here on top of my book, y'all. I'm sorry. And like I said, I got this book on Amazon somewhere used, and it had this ticket in it where someone had visited the exhibit when they bought this book. And it has the date April 15 to August 15, 1977. So this is before I was even born. Someone went to this exhibit and bought this book. They put their little map of the displays in it, set it on a shelf until it came to my shelf. And if that person who visited this in 1977 happens to see this somehow, hello and thank you. Okay, here is the throne, which you guys have seen me put up on my story. This is not the best image, but I'm going to walk you through it. Okay, this is just one example of the love we see here. The king and queen are facing each other. She's not behind him. You see that she is equal to him. Again, we have the sun disk, the Aten, which brings its life-giving rays to the king and queen. But if you notice, their headdresses cut through the rays, meaning that those headdresses were added later, after this chair was already built and in use. This was made at Amarna. I believe it was made at Amarna. Why else would it feature their father, sun god, with the life-giving rays, bringing them life? Also, if you notice the cartouches, the ovals containing the names, these are a little bit fresher looking or more concise than the rest of the hieroglyphs, because these were changed when his name was changed from Tutankhaten to Tutankhamen. And like I said, I'm sorry for my southern accent. I'm sorry for mispronouncing half these names, if not more than half. But yeah, this, for all we know, it could have been made when they were children. Who knows? But it was already in use when their father was still alive because of that disc. But then they bring it with them to the new city, add their royal headdresses, change the names to the new royal names, and then this enters his tomb when he dies at under 20 years old. Okay? So the same wife slash half-sister that's here, putting some kind of ointment on her beloved husband, she put this in his tomb. She's probably the one that put that shawl on Anubis and told him to guard her beloved. One more thing. This is the part that always gets me, no matter how many times I see it. Mammoth. This is Mammoth's tail, by the way. He's our oldest black cat. Their feet. And I don't know if this was intentional. Part of me thinks it was one of those artists with the Amarna beliefs. If you can see their shoes, each of them has on one sandal, as if they're sharing one pair. He's not going to wear both of them and leave her with nothing, and she's not going to take both and leave him with nothing. They're equal. So no matter how many times I see this, it's the tiny little symbols like those shoes and like their headdresses cutting through these rays that tell you that this was not just a chair. This was something that they loved, and if they didn't use it every day, he certainly had it sitting in a place of importance where they could see it and commemorate. Just one example, guys. There is so much love in this tomb. And the fact that it had only been robbed in antiquity is such a rare delight. You cannot imagine how this man must have felt. Here's a picture of Howard caught by the camera. Is he not charming? From everything I've read, he was not a people person. He was kind of like me. Just let me do my job and be organized and get it done and leave me alone. But the things he did, I mean, can you imagine having to squiggle between that wall and shrine to put those numbers? To keep this organized as what is taken out in what order? Because this is the golden shrine against the wall of the tomb. Yes, in antiquity, the shrine was constructed inside the tomb. It may have been made in pieces elsewhere, but they had to put it around the sarcophagus inside the tomb itself, which I imagine was very difficult. They were immensely talented. We will never know half of what they knew. Here's another picture of the king and queen. The king, here we have his royal name, Neb-Keperah, and we see the queen's hand offering him an arrow. If you see the hole picture, it's cut off here. She's looking back at him and pointing forward at a duck in the swamp. So he doesn't even have to see where she's pointing. They're instinctively in tune. She knows he's going to fire, and he knows she's going to give him the next arrow. So this is just another visual representation for proof of their love that still lives today. Their children may not have survived, but we can see their love. Where is that beautiful shrine? The golden shrine. You guys may know what I'm talking about without the picture. That contained the canopic chest and those beautiful, possibly repurposed jars. If I get interrupted, I apologize. Well, bless it. I know what's in here somewhere. We got pictures of everything here. Howard. Chariots. And the chariots, you guys, look at the state of this. Oop. My map's falling out. Which, yes, of course, the king deserves to be built with chariots, but since he was buried in such haste in a tomb that was probably not his to begin with, the axles had to be cut in half to get the chariots into this small tomb. I believe they've been reconstructed today at the museum, and they are very glorious. Oh, heck. Alright, here's one of the wreath, garlands of flowers, and linen shroud covering the second coffin. You guys do know he was buried inside 3 coffins. 2 were wood and inlaid with gold, and the 3rd was solid gold. But this is within the 2nd. Someone put these flowers around his uraeus. They put these flowers around his neck. They said goodbye to him. They said goodbye before he was even in the tomb. And his poor wife, you guys, I can't describe what she went through after his death. Like I said, she was a very young lady at that time too, between 20 and 22 years old. So to be a young widow and the only thing standing between everyone else and that throne, can you imagine her fear? Here's another photo. This is found within the wrappings of the mummy. And you see even inside the wrappings, he has these little tags. He's numbering and cataloging every single piece that comes off of there. Howard Carter, the most meticulous man in archaeology at this time, just happens to be the one person determined enough to spend 7 years to find this tomb and catalog it this perfectly. Are you kidding me? People think this is a coincidence? It's not. Imagine if Belzoni had found this tomb. There would be nothing left. There would be powder instead of a mummy. You guys know about Belzoni? He was a Italian strongman in the 1700s. And when the Egyptian bug hit Europe, he became an archaeologist. And he traveled to Egypt and used dynamite to open things, and he would pull hair off of mummies and think it was funny, and sit on things to break them, and just party around with the contents of a tomb. Not a good person. So we are indeed lucky that Mr. Howard Carter found this, and no one else was good enough to find this. These are 2 of the statues that guard this shrine. This is also wood inlaid with gold and precious stones. It's in black and white here. But if you look up the canopic shrine, it is gorgeous. And it's, I think it said 6 foot 6 inches tall and about 5 square feet of floor area. So this is a huge, massive thing standing in the middle of the floor, dominating the room. right behind the Anubis statue. Okay, Anubis stops you from getting to the king's organs. And then if he doesn't stop you, these 4 goddesses on the outside will. And if you notice, who do they look like? Look at her face on the other carvings and tell me this is not Ankhesenamen. Tell me that that sculptor did not make it her. Like I said, I believe a lot of the stuff was made by the same craftsmen that worked for his father. So, of course, they had seen them grow up. They knew these kids. They cared about them. They did what they could with what they had. And that's all anyone can ever do. Once you take apart the outer wooden shell, it has this alabaster chest inside, which, of course, is made from one beautiful piece of alabaster carved. There's a lid, bottom, and contains the 4 canopic jars. There's a picture of one here on the cover. That's a head of a canopic jar. There's some debate, or there was 20 years ago, last time I was up to research on this. There was some debate at that time about if these were actually his jars or if they were someone else's that had been repurposed. Because there were several things here that had his father's name on them. Which again, his father's Akhenaten name on them. And referenced his father as the servant of Aten. So a few things that maybe someone had held back from that big change. Or maybe the king or queen themselves had saved them as relics from their father. Here's another picture. If you're squeamish, don't look. It's a mummy. This is one of the babies that was found in King Tut's tomb. There were 2 babies. This is the larger one. You see, she had 2 little coffins. She was inside. And also had her own little mask made of cartonnage with gold. But it didn't fit over the bundle. They didn't know how big to make it. So it was found elsewhere with other remains from this tomb. But now, after Carter found this, he knew it went to this little baby. Like I said, the king and queen genuinely loved each other. They tried at least twice. They had 2 baby mummies in there that are definitely theirs. And if they had lived, like Howard Carter said, if one of them had lived, there would have never been a Ramses. Because this was the true line. Here's another beautiful piece of alabaster. I believe this is the one, it just says alabaster vase. But there's one of these that when you put a light behind it, it illuminates with a scene of the king and queen. I don't have a picture of that right now. I'm just looking through this one book. But of course, this is exquisite craftsmanship. We're talking about 3,500 years ago. And, you know, this is all passed down from father to son over the years as their trade grew and became better. You think we were the first to invent things? How about a folding bed for camping? A fold-out bed. Yes. We are not the first to invent anything. Like, there's no new thing. There's no secrets. Beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. I'm gonna find that thing if it's in here. It may not be. No, but here is something else left. A bouquet. It's one of the last pictures in this book. A funerary bouquet that survived over 3,000 years. It survived robbers, time, earthquakes, bad people, everything. And all this was left for Howard Carter to find. Like I said, Howard Carter and his sponsor were from England. I want you guys to think of an image in your head of a medieval English shield with the lion on it marching. This is King Tut's shield, where he's shown as a sphinx-headed lion. And in this instance, he's conquering his enemies. So this was a display of power. But what were the English shields, if not the display of power and what they stand for? And like I said, this poor boy, he wasn't a guy. He didn't even get to make it to adulthood, really. And if he had, he was crippled. He had many canes in his tomb. A lot of them had been used every day. We know his mummy had many deformities. It would have been painful for him to walk. So that's why a lot of times he's pictured seated, I think. But again, we never see his wife sitting behind him. She's always in front of him, offering him something. Because you guys may know, the royal line in Egypt went through the female bloodline. That's why you have some kings that would marry their daughters, or, you know, a lot of not quite savory stuff that still goes on. People don't talk about it anymore, though. I hope you guys enjoyed something. And I hope somebody can watch and feel passion for history and hope and love that can withstand millennia. Millennia. But most of all, hope, like Howard Carter. No matter what the other people say, you know what is out there. And you know you got to keep digging for it. So, stay tuned, guys. Bye.